Okay, so let's keep going. So what we're going to be looking at now, guys and girls, is the circulatory system. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the circulatory system.
I'm looking.
Okay, shush, please. Circulatory system. Right, and the
But
first.
that's not how you spell.
Okay, thank you. Amaya. So, what we've got here, I want to go through the structure of the heart first. Now, this is a diagrammatical representation. Of course, this is not how it looks at all, but it'll make the point and you will learn things. Okay, now the first thing when dealing with the heart is write down where your left hand is. So my left hand is here and my right hand is here. That's where my hands are, okay? So what I'm going to do straight away, I'm going to cross this out. I'm going to write right here, because this is where the right hand side of the heart is. I'm going to cross that out and write left. That's where the left hand side of the heart is. Now the top two chambers start with the letter A because that's where the atriums are. So I've got an atrium here and an atrium here, and the way I remember that those two are A's because that's how the alphabet starts. The bottom two start with a V, and the bottom two, that's where the ventricles are, and that's the bottom of the alphabet. Right, so this one here is called the right atrium, on the right hand side of the heart, and this one's the right ventricle. This one is the left atrium, and that is the left ventricle. Now what we're going to do is we're going to...
They're both, so look, you put them in equally.
Yeah, okay. Now, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to have some blood vessels bringing blood into the heart. Okay, so here's my blood vessels going into the heart, okay? So my blood vessel here, so the blood is entering the heart into the right atrium. Now because this blood vessel here is visiting the heart, we know it's a vein. This particular vein is called the Vena Cava vein, okay? And what we know about veins is veins visit the heart, okay? So veins visit the heart, and that's how you know if it's visiting the heart, it's a vein. So what you have is the deoxygenated blood. So this is deoxygenated blood enters the vena cava and goes into the right atrium. Then there's going to be valves through which it goes through. So the blood will go through these valves and into the right ventricle. Now the question becomes, well, what is the job of this valve here? And the answer to that question is the valve makes blood flow in one direction only. Makes blood flow in one direction only. Right? So that's that. Then after that, what we're gonna have is we're gonna have the right ventricle is gonna pump blood out of the heart and away from the heart. Okay, so if we have a look here, right, blood is going to be pumped away from the heart. Now like I said, guys, this is diagrammatical. Your heart does not look like this. If it does, you probably wouldn't be alive. Okay, so here what we've got is we've got the blood going to the lungs. Alright, so I'm going to draw out the lungs, and you're all going to tell me why it's going to the lungs. Well, number one, you know that it's deoxygenated blood, so it's going to pick up oxygen. So the blood flows through this way, through this blood vessel here. Now because the blood vessel here is taking blood away from the heart, it's going to be an artery, and it's going to the lungs, so it's the pulmonary. Now a fancy word for lung is pulmonary, so this is the pulmonary artery. You know it's an artery because it's going away from the heart, and it's the pulmonary artery because it's going to the lungs. So the pulmonary artery takes this deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and the deoxygenated blood ends up picking up oxygen. I'm going to cover that later. And then it ends up going back to the heart via a blood vessel. So if we get our blood vessel colour back up, which was, I don't know what it was, who cares what it was. I'm just going to carry on my blood vessel. Let's make it a different colour so it stands out. So this is strictly a different colour just so it stands out, so it's different from the blood, okay. So here it's going back to the heart via this blood vessel. Now if it's going back to the heart, so this is my blood, the blood is going back to the heart, so this here, if it's taking blood back to the heart, it must be a vein, and it's coming from the lungs, so this one is called the pulmonary vein. Now the pulmonary vein ends up taking the blood to the left atrium, right? Once your blood enters the left atrium, the blood has to travel through, once again, the valve. The job of the valve I've written here already, and then it gets to the left ventricle. Now the left ventricle, as you can tell, is different from every other chamber. It's bigger. Why is it bigger? It's bigger, number one, because it needs to get the blood to the rest of the body. It needs to get oxygenated blood. Oxygenated blood to the rest of the body, to all of the body, in fact, to all of the body. Now what that means for this is that it has to be a big muscle, so it's got to be a big muscle, so that there's a big contraction and a big force to push that blood all the way around. Now I'm going to colour this in a different colour, okay, because we're kind of making a mess here. So the left ventricle, what it does is it pumps the blood, so this is my oxygenated blood, out to the heart to go to the rest of the body. Now this blood actually it's actually an artery. Okay, so the artery takes the blood, this oxygenated blood, to the rest of the body. So we know it's an artery because it's taking blood away, it's oxygenated, and it's called the aorta artery. So aorta, let me spell it again, aorta artery. Right, so the aorta artery takes that blood to the rest of the body. Now that is the heart done, and its chambers and all that good stuff. So what we're going to look at now is what I talked about just earlier before, which is this section here, which is, well, what happens at the lungs exactly. So if we take the lung, right at the bottom of the lungs there's a section called the alveoli, okay, and the alveoli looks like a cloud, although that just looks rubbish. Let me just do that again, because I'm rubbish at art, but that was just awful. Okay, so it looks like a cloud. Here's my alveoli. Right, and what we have in the alveoli is we have people breathing in and people breathing out. Now when you breathe in, you're going to be breathing in quite a lot of oxygen. So if we have this as our representation of oxygen, right, so in our alveoli there is a high concentration of oxygen. So it's a high concentration, that's the short way of writing concentration, of oxygen. Right, and here's my blood. So here's my capillary, right? We're going to learn difference between capillary veins and arteries in a bit, but here's my capillary, right? It's my blood vessel carrying the blood, and here it is. That's still the same capillary. Now within the capillary we have red blood cells. Now remember, this is coming to the lung to pick up the oxygen, so this is relatively speaking deoxygenated. It's not going to have that much oxygen in, but I'm going to draw some oxygen in just to prove a point. Okay, so let's say that this just has one molecule of oxygen, maybe this has a bit extra or whatever. Now the question is though, which one has the highest concentration? Is it in the alveoli or the blood vessel? And of course the answer is it's a high concentration in the alveoli and a low concentration of oxygen in the capillary. Now, so what's going to happen is the oxygen is going to move from a region of high concentration to low concentration, right? So it's going to go from the alveoli, where it's in high concentration, to the red blood cell, where it's in low concentration. And this is what diffusion is. So this is gas exchange of oxygen by diffusion, moving from high concentration to low concentration. Right, now the next thing is we have another gas that needs to be exchanged, and that is carbon dioxide. So obviously we're going to have some carbon dioxide in the alveoli, right? But now remember, carbon dioxide is carried within the plasma, so I'm going to have carbon dioxide all over the plasma. Remember, carbon dioxide is not carried in the red blood cell, it's carried in the plasma. Now, where is there a high concentration of carbon dioxide? Is it in the plasma or is it in the alveoli? The answer is it's in the alveoli. So what we're going to say here, I'll just write it here, is that the concentration of carbon dioxide in the alveoli, CO2 concentration, so this is a symbol for concentration, you guys would need to write it out in full sentences. So the alveolar concentration is low, whereas the capillary carbon dioxide concentration is high. So carbon dioxide is going to move by diffusion from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration, and then as you breathe out, it's going to go all the way out and you're going to breathe it out, and this is called gas exchange, guys. And gas exchange happens at the alveoli. Okay, the other thing what you need to be aware of is some adaptations of the alveoli. Okay, so I'll go through that now. So number one, the alveoli has a large surface area. That's so that more gas exchange can happen. Number two is that the alveoli itself is one cell thick, and so that's to allow gases to diffuse easily. Number three, there is a third one, it keeps escaping me. Oh, it's got a good blood supply via capillaries. Good blood supply by capillaries, right? And the capillaries themselves are adapted for this function, but we'll come on to that later. Okay, so that is that, ladies and gentlemen. Diffusion of gases, gas exchange, and the adaptations of the alveoli. So I'm going to do one more thing on this video, and then I'm going to upload it and make another one another time. Okay, the one more thing that I want to do, that I'd like to do, is as follows. Okay, it is, we're going to look at the different types of blood vessels. Okay, so number one, I'm going to write here, it's going to be arteries. Okay, now arteries, as you remember, if you think about the aorta artery, it's going to be under a lot of pressure because it's pumping blood at a high pressure all around the body. So here's my lumen, that's the hole through which the blood flows around. Here is my muscular tissue, and at the end, so all of this here is muscular tissue. Okay, and it's going to be really thick muscular tissue. Okay, and the reason for this is because it needs to withstand high blood pressure. Muscular tissue thick due to high blood pressure, right? So it needs to withstand that. And this bit here is connective tissue, and it needs to be very strong, so that again the artery doesn't collapse. Does that make sense, people? So why is it strong? So that the artery maintains its shape and it doesn't burst. This bit here is called the lumen, and why is it? That's basically where the blood flows through. So if you look at this very structured shape. Next we're going to look at capillaries. Okay, so capillary is what we just saw in the alveoli. Now the other places where it can be found is respiring muscles, and it's just basically it's designed in this way so that a gas exchange can happen quickly and efficiently. The thing is with capillaries, what you need to be aware of is that they are one cell thick. In other words, they're very thin. One cell thick to allow diffusion of gases, and not only just gases, glucose, waste products, diffusion of gases or glucose or whatever it might be easily. So that's why it's one cell thick, and here is the lumen. where all the blood travels through. Now the final one that we need to be aware of, guys and girls, is the veins. Okay, now the vein has a quite irregular shape. Okay, so if something like that. Okay, now if you compare this artery with this vein and compare its muscular tissue, what you're going to find is that the muscular tissue of the vein is very, very thin. So I'll shade it in just as I did up there. This is the muscular tissue, muscular tissue, muscular tissue. It's very, very thin. Okay, why? Because there's not that much blood pressure in the so it's thin muscular tissue, because the BP is not that high. BP is, well, it's low compared to the artery, so we could say its blood pressure is low compared to the artery. And this lumen here, it has this irregular shape. Okay, and you still have that strong connective tissue though, because you want to maintain strength and stability within the vein. Okay, so those are the three things that I wanted to cover in this video. I'm hoping you guys use it, otherwise I'm just wasting my time. But in any case, those are the three things I wanted to go through in this video. And I'm going to pause the video. Long thing, have to go all